Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Healthy Habit Show. I thank you all once again for joining me so very much here and continuing this discussion with me on the Taoist perspective on how to live and how to approach life with more contentment, more peace, more happiness, and in harmony with the universe as it is. And I also would like to take this moment to remind you to follow me on Instagram at philosophical.reminders. If you like this philosophy type of thing and also are into personal growth and development, it would be a great page for you to follow. I post a lot of great things on there every morning to help get you ready for the day, help give you perspective on the week and the weekend ahead. Also, follow me wherever you are listening to this podcast. Go ahead and subscribe so you get all the latest episodes. Episodes will be coming out every Mondays and Thursdays now. I'm going to be putting these things out twice a week, giving you guys some time to catch up, man, with all the me in your phone, man. I know I pop up there every other day, dude. So look forward to it twice a week. Once on Mondays to help get you ready for the week ahead, and then once on Thursdays to give you some perspective over the weekend. Now, I will tell you that these things, they are also self-serving. They very much help me too as well. I embarked on this philosophy journey many, many years ago, in fact, after my massive weight loss. Looking for peace and acceptance with my new body. And that is what had spurned this whole thing on. I've been listening to personal development and philosophy books for quite some time now. And the last one that I listened to was very profound and struck me very deeply. And I decided to go back over that book and listen to it again and make notes and create my own personal notebook. And I thought to myself, you know what? You remember something like 20% of the stuff that you hear, like 40% of the stuff that you write down, and 95% of the stuff that you teach. So I figured this would be a great opportunity to dedicate an Instagram page to this. And why not start a podcast? I don't want to get down the road a year from now and look back and then think, man, I really wish I had done that. That would have been so cool. So here I am, man. Here I am, seizing the moment, seizing the day, and proselytizing to you guys, man. So I hope you all enjoy. Now we're going to start the show, man. We are going to start the show, and this is going to be our last episode on the subject of Daoism. And we're going to start with a bit of a recap of the past so many episodes that I have put out. Now, in the first episode, we discussed the topic of language and concepts such as good and bad, beautiful and ugly, difficult and easy, and how these concepts are really just a projection of the mind onto reality. Difficult and easy do not exist in reality. They do not exist in nature. All that is a comparison that we engage in between different obstacles in life. Certain things that we perceive as easy and that we can perceive as difficult, but to someone else with a different set of life experiences might seem the opposite way. It very much is just a projection of the mind, and those things don't exist in nature. They don't exist outside of our own minds. The takeaway from that is when you walk into a situation now and it's perceived as difficult or easy, you know that is just a projection of your mind. You very well might yourself, with your own life experiences and circumstances, get to the end of the project and then think, man, that wasn't as difficult as I thought. That really was just all in my head. Now, in the second episode, we discussed the subject of background and foreground, and how we tend to pull ourselves from harmony with the world and posit ourselves in the foreground, giving us more validity than we actually warrant. And when we do that, everything seems bigger, everything seems more difficult, or suffering appears to be greater or more so because we pulled ourselves out of the background and put ourselves in the foreground. See, I used a traffic analogy and how when we are driving on the freeway in traffic, we're very much just part of the flow. We are just part of a cosmic river that consists of people going to and coming from different places, and we're just a part of it. But we tend to pull ourselves from that and put ourselves in the foreground and act as if everything is happening in relation to us. You see, the perspective there is to remember that things don't happen to us. We're very much a part of everything that is happening in a continuation. It's not like we are this foreground and everything else is in the background and things pop up out of the background. We very much pull things from the background and describe them. That person that cuts you off on the road, they're not just part of the day. That's not just part of the universe in the way that it works. We very much pull them out of that, put them in the foreground, and now we describe them. We describe them as difficult and easy, good and bad, smart and dumb. Now, what I've learned from these lectures on Daoism is that we don't have to do that. We can just accept the harmony that is, and that they are just part of the day. They're just part of the flow of the universe as we are. We are just very much part of that flow. It's really only in our minds that this concept of background and foreground exists. Everything, as far as the universe is concerned, is just one constant flow. There is no background and foreground. Now, in the third episode, we discussed the topic of living from the heart rather from the mind. How the mind is calculation and the mind is not just acting spontaneously. And Daoism is very much about living a spontaneous life, living a life of action through spontaneity from the heart. See, the heart doesn't conceptualize or think or come up with its own concerns and desires. It just does and just acts. Calculation is a product of the mind. We used an analogy of going to visit an ill friend. Now, when you go and see your friend and you think about it and you think, well, this is the virtuous thing to do. This is what virtue demands of me. This is the kind thing to do. That's all from the mind, which is a step below the way or the Tao, which is just spontaneous action from the heart. Going and visiting your ill friend because you're compelled to, because the wishes of your heart compelled you to go. You're living spontaneously and acting from the heart. And that is always going to be the more meaningful, better way to live, is from the heart. In the fourth episode, we discussed the topic of living for others rather than for ourselves. How when we put our own concerns and desires aside to help other people achieve their goals, we can achieve a life that's more meaningful to others. You see, when we look back on life, we look back on history and we ask ourselves, which figures led the most meaningful lives? We're always going to pick those that led a life in service of others, those that sacrifice their own concerns and desires for the greater good, that had a better impact on people. People such as Harriet Tubman, people such as Dr. Martin Luther King, people such as Abraham Lincoln. Those people very much laid down their lives to help others. I used a personal story from my childhood about a friend of mine named Steve who basically saved me from detention by helping me to run that mile in under 9 minutes. Steve did not have concern for himself. He just wanted to help out a friend. He put his own concerns and desires aside. Even though he was out and didn't have to run that mile any longer, he had already accomplished it. He chose to help me out. He chose to help someone else accomplish his goal. And here we are nearly 30 years later, and I never forgot that. And I'll remember that till the day that I die. Hell, I even put it in my podcast. These historical figures that I just mentioned are people that will last the test of time. They'll never be forgotten. They'll never be forgotten because they lived for others. Now, in the next episode, we discussed how to know when you've done enough. And that is a really big topic in the world as far as I see it today. Everyone always feels like they're not enough, like they haven't done enough, like they should have accomplished more in life. And I myself very much beat myself up over this. I mean, I look at my podcasts, I look at my Instagram that I've been working on, and I'll tell myself, man, I could be doing better. I should be doing better with this. I should be growing more. But the topic that we covered in there was how to know when you've done enough. And I went over several tips and mindset shifts that you can adopt that will help you to overcome those feelings like you are not enough. And I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. It was one that I put a lot of time and effort into and used my weight loss story as an analogy. One way that I had mentioned in that episode was to look at the other areas in your life. And when you see those lacking, when you start to feel bad about your lack of being where you need to be, maybe it's time to find balance. Maybe it's time to find balance. There's always more that can be done. We've got our whole lives ahead of us to work on fitness and personal goals and building a podcast and building an Instagram or whatever your goals in life are. It doesn't have to be done right now. It doesn't have to be done right now. You've got your whole life to work on eating healthy and losing weight or whatever your goals may be. The only way you can justify rushing yourself in the process is if you plan on giving it up. If you want to lose 20 pounds by Christmas and decide that I'm going to do this and after that I'm going to give it up, well, then you just set yourself up a goal. And in my opinion, in many ways, you set yourself up for failure when you do that. But we will talk about that in another podcast. But things of this nature are very much a lifelong endeavor that we commit to. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It very much is a marathon. So you can relax, and if you've had some pizza over the weekend, realize that it's not the end of the world. I mean, this is a lifelong process, and pizza is going to be part of it. Now, in the last episode, we discussed the topic of letting go and how the sage in the universe very much treats everything like a straw dog. It's willing to sacrifice it and burn it up for the sake of building a better self. So it's discipline over our attachments that build a stronger self. I used a personal story in that one. I used my podcast in that one, but I also used my boy and how I'm incredibly proud of him because he had his long curly hair and everyone always complimented him on it. But we realized that it was time for him to cut it, and he very much was willing to cut it and let it go. He was willing to cut it and let it go when we came up with this idea to donate his hair to Locks for Kids or some other hair foundation. It was the concept of helping others with his hair and sacrificing it that really is what compelled him to cut his hair and to do so in a more happy manner. We also discussed the concept of living with an empty cup, which is something that I believe I've gone over in a number of these podcasts. But it very much opened him up to new possibilities in life. Everyone loves his new hair, which I cut myself, by the way. His teachers complimented it, his schoolmates and his teammates in soccer, even his coach told him that he loves his hair. So he very much emptied his cup and opened himself up to new possibilities in life. I used my podcast as an analogy there and talked about how it is when our cup is full that we're less useful to people because we're already so busy in life. And that one of these days, the universe is going to decide that it's time for me to empty the cup of this podcast and move on towards the next adventure. And how we need to approach new situations that come into our lives without preconceived notions and ideas about what it's going to be like. Approach it with an empty cup and embrace it so that we can fully enjoy it. Now I'm going to share with you some of my own personal thoughts and takeaways from this lecture and how I honestly believe that this whole thing works and how we can go about living in harmony with the universe. And we'll be back after this, man. Well, welcome back, everybody, from the other side of that break. And now we're going to continue on with some of my own personal thoughts on the matter. So what is exactly living in harmony? I mean, what does it mean to live in harmony with the universe, to live a spontaneous life, and to just accept things? Well, you see, how I believe it works really is we're constantly in harmony, whether we realize it or not. There really is no way that we can be out of harmony with the universe. For us to think that as being part of the universe, as being something that was very much made by the universe, for us to think that we have some ability to reach outside of it is just kind of crazy to me. I mean, it's not something that we're capable of doing. You know, we could really only do what we are compelled by the universe to do. It's a matter of our past experiences and influences that have contributed to our story, that shape the way we respond to everything around us. And this very much does align with science. I mean, I've said before in other podcasts that we're really nothing more than some kind of chemical biological response to the environment. And Daoism really does fall in line with modern science. Whether or not we're in harmony is not something that we can control. I mean, the universe just is. So there only is harmony. I mean, the beginning and the end is already there, and everything else in between has already been created. It's just a matter of what exactly is our role in that harmony going to be. If it's one where we're holding on to things from the past, or we're going into situations with preconceived notions and ideas, then that is very much the role in this harmonious symphony that we were meant to play. If it's one where we suffer and we toil over things that we shouldn't toil over and we stress out or whatnot, then that stress is just our harmonious role in the universe. It may not be something that's comfortable. It may not be something that we enjoy, but it very much still is in harmony with the universe. There's just no way around that. You know, it really comes down to, are we going to have a harmonious role with the universe that's one of suffering and one of overthinking and self-doubt? Or are we going to have a harmonious role that is positive and has a positive influence on those around us and happy and peaceful? Now, do we get to choose what type of harmonious role we play? I don't believe we do. If I've got to give you an answer on that one with a gun to my head for a yes or no response, I would say that I don't really believe that we do. All that we can do, if it's doing something at all, is hope that we've got the right mix of experiences and influences in our lives that are going to compel us to live the kind of life that we hope to live. And whatever type of life that we hope to live, that is our hopes and our dreams are just part of the harmony of it all. Whether or not we achieve that is another matter. I mean, that's also part of the harmony of the universe that is. Most of this philosophy that I've listened to, most of these lectures and books and whatnot from different professors and different authors, it really all comes back to one fundamental principle, and that is acceptance. At the end of the day, that's really all we can do, is just accept what is. We can embark on a life of practice, one where we practice acceptance with our role in the universe. If we suffer and toil over little things or big things, the only thing we can really do is just accept it. Just accept that that was our role in life. If whatever comes our way, we must accept it. Whatever leaves, we must accept it. Whatever our role that we played in this cosmic symphony was or is, acceptance is really the only thing that we can do at the end of the day to achieve some kind of peace with it all. And acceptance is very much a practice. I mean, it's something that you kind of have to dedicate yourself to. Like, for example, this weekend, I practiced a number of things that I've heard and that I've listened to throughout my philosophical journey. And there are two Miyamoto Musashi quotes that I'd like to save for a podcast on him, but it's worth repeating. Two quotes of his that I really, really have learned to appreciate. One, accept everything just the way it is. And two, in all things, have no preferences. Now, these are two concepts that I repeated to myself over the weekend and practiced very much so. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a person that has any kind of problems or anything like that, just getting along with the day. I mean, I'm kind of a gear-headed guy sometimes. I mean, I wake up in the mornings, I have my ideas of what I want to happen throughout the day, what I want to get out of the day. And I just find myself fighting with the day to make those things happen. And, we all do it, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm off some deep end on it, but I definitely have looked at the situation and realized, that the answers to life aren't outside. It's not about making the world what you want it to be so that you can be happy inside. It really comes down to accept everything just the way it is, and in all things have no preferences, because we can't shape the universe like we'd like to think that we can. It's on its own course and does what it does, and we are going to be in harmony with it whether we like it or not. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to open ourselves up to multiple experiences and influences that are going to help us along the way, or whether or not we're just meant to go the opposite way and not open up ourselves to things like this. You see, I have very much led the type of life where I can look inward and look towards philosophy to help me achieve a state of just peace and contentment over the weekend, over the week, with whatever comes my way. I've led the type of life that has turned me into the type of person that can do that. Maybe some people haven't. The reason why I do this podcast is I put these messages out there thinking to myself that if you're listening to this and you're one of those people that has not had the type of influence in your life that can compel you to be the type of person that can just shrug things off and go with the flow, and you're looking for that, maybe my story, my podcast, my life can help to be that influence in you that shifts you one way and allows you to look at the situation and accept everything just the way it is, and to make peace with everything and to have no preferences. It really is a great way to live. I mean, everything that comes into your life that buffets you about, that pulls you away from having the type of day or the type of circumstances that you want, just accept everything just the way it is. That really is the heart of the matter and the heart of going about things peacefully and not fighting with the world. Now, I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't try to make changes. You see, I think there is there's a bit of a false paradox in the philosophical community where, for some reason, accepting everything the way it is and striving for change has to be a contradiction. But I believe it very much doesn't. It doesn't. You can accept everything just the way it is and likewise strive for change. You can try to change yourself and better yourself and work out and eat healthy, but at the same time, very much accept who you are. It is a practice. It is something that we have to dedicate ourselves to. It's not something that's going to come easy. Just as weight loss. I mean, weight loss isn't something that's going to come easy to anybody. Eating healthy and working out every day, those are practices. It's not like you can just decide, oh, I'm going to start eating healthy now. Though that's why so many people fail and ultimately gain the weight back, is because they think it's like some kind of a switch where you can just decide and you can just choose, okay, I'm going to do this now. No, it very much is a practice. All things in life are a practice. Learning to accept everything just the way it is very much a practice itself. It's very much a practice itself. Learning to have no preferences is very much a practice, and learning to accept everything the way it is, but at the same time, striving for change to better yourself is very much a practice. You can look at it and say that, hey, well, I'm going to strive to make changes in my life, and that's just the way it is. And you can accept that. And if it brings you a life of toil, accept it, and it will lessen that toil. It's part of the practice. Well, I thank you guys so much for joining me here, joining me on this journey through this series on Daoism and living in harmony and living a spontaneous life. There is much more to say on the topic, and if you enjoyed this, I would highly recommend that you pick up a copy of the Great Courses series, Jay Garfield's Perspectives on a Meaningful Life. He can go into much deeper, have a deeper influence on you in different ways that I can. I mean, I didn't really cover everything that I've listened to in there. I just took away the key points that I enjoyed the most that I wanted to share with you guys. We definitely will be continuing the podcast, although it's going to be twice a week now, Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays to get you ready for the week, and then Thursdays to get you ready for the weekend, man. So I thank you guys so much for joining me here again, and follow me at philosophical.reminders. I hope you guys are having a great day, great morning, great afternoon, great whatever it is, a great weekend to you, a great week, and a great life, man. You guys take care.